Hello everyone, and today we're going to be looking at Chapter 12. We're only going to spend one day on it because it deals with variable pay. And variable pay pretty much just the different pay strategies that are out there. There's nothing really profound in it, but I do want to cover some of the highlights of it. This is an area where we're trying to make sure we are motivating people in the right way, and it can include money, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We can incentivize people, we can motivate them using other forms of non-monetary incentives. So this is what Chapter 12 is going to deal with, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started with Chapter 12. This is going to be just a one-day overview of Chapter 12, which deals with variable pay and executive compensation. And if you remember the lectures in the past, when we've talked about motivation and a person's sense of equity, one of the main factors that they consider is the amount of pay that they're getting. Pay will always be a great motivator, but there are discussions about how effective pay is in the long run. But today, we're going to take a look at some of the different pay strategies that organizations incorporate into their business. So let's go ahead and get started. The first type of pay that we're going to be looking at today is called variable pay. Variable pay is compensation that is tied to the performance itself, and there are different types. Now, as you see here, you can look at it from a performance perspective that's evaluated at the individual, group, or organization level. People work harder if pay is tied to performance. Now, for companies that offer compensation based on commission and for piecemeal work, and we're going to talk about those different strategies, yes, pay is a very big motivator because your livelihood is tied to your performance. So people will normally work harder. It's beneficial for both employers and employees, and that's really debatable because a lot of times when you take a look at production work, piecemeal work, where they're paid by the amount of output per unit, people can really make a slave of themselves to that organization. I know in some areas in Mississippi, there are factories that pay people by their production work, and these people will not take breaks. They will work themselves to death just so that they can make enough money to not just survive on, but to have a little bit of extra spending money. So it is beneficial to the employer, and it can be for the employee, but just know that some of these schemes, some of these strategies can be detrimental to the well-being of the employee. Now, employers, of course, you have more output per employee, lower fixed cost, and some risk has shifted to employees. So they know that if they don't produce, the company may not be able to be profitable. And if they're not profitable, they could lose their jobs. So there's an extra incentive there for the employee to work and assume some of the risk. And then you have for the employee, of course, more pay. Now, when it comes to incentive for performance, there's some basic assumptions. First of all, some people or groups contribute more to organizational success than do others. And when you're talking about paying people as groups, you can get into that, and that's where we get back into equity theory. I'm doing more, or I'm doing the same work that so-and-so is working, but they're getting paid as much as me for not doing as much as me. So you can get into trouble with that. Some people perform better and are more productive than are others. And then some employees or groups who perform better or contribute more should receive greater compensation. So you have within a group those who will not perform. They're in almost every group that I've ever encountered, but they will still get a certain amount of pay. So if we pay for performance, at the individual level, that helps to alleviate that. But also, too, you can create competition between groups in organizations as they try to outperform others so that they can get more money out for their efforts. Now, when it comes to incentives, take a look at all of the different types of incentives. You don't need to have necessarily money. You may have perks that you can get, a greater sense of autonomy. They may give you more responsibility, professional development, and of course you have praise. For those who are intrinsically motivated, there are a lot of benefits to just praising people. You have monetary incentives, which could be merchandise, profit sharing, employee contributions to stock options, gain sharing, which is the amount of money that the company can save because of your efforts and so forth. So there are all types of incentives that you can provide to the employee that doesn't necessarily have to be linked to dollars. Now, effective variable pay and the reason for variable pay plans. It links the strategic goals and employee performance, especially if you are being paid for specific performance. That performance should be in line with the company's goals, their mission, and as a result, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, the company is going to be on track as far as reaching its objectives. Enhance the results and reward employees financially. And again, money is a big motivator, and you are tying in that performance to the financial rewards. And you are recognizing them for their performance. People want to know that they're doing a good job, that they're recognized and appreciated, whether they're paid or not. Still in all, it's a good idea to be able to just tell people and recognize them for what they're doing. But when you tie it to money as well, that even enhances their performance or motivation. Promotes achievement of HR objectives and reduces fixed costs. So all of these types of pay strategies are the reasons, or what you see here is variable pay strategies. These are the reasons why you have that. Now, an effective incentive plan. Does the plan, these are the questions that you want to ask yourself, does the plan fit the organization? If you are paying people bonuses and you're in a non-commissioned, or if you're in a situation where you're being paid based on your performance, if you're being paid piecemeal, if you're being paid through commissions, do these types of strategies fit really the organization? Is it enough to pay a person minimum wage? Just give them a wage or a salary. For some organizations, it's not. They want more. They have to tie in more to their compensation package and benefits package than just paying people the minimum wage due. Does the plan reward the appropriate actions? And oftentimes, if you are paying people by the group and people aren't performing in that group, then what message are you sending out to them? So are you rewarding the appropriate people, and is it appropriate, their actions appropriate for the type of reward they're getting? And is the plan administered properly? And that's usually HR. They're the ones who normally will be involved in the types of pay strategies and administering those pay strategies. I'm going to go ahead and get all of these out. When you look at variable pay and the variety of strategies out there, you need to look at some performance indicators. Performance indicators tell us these are the things that are necessary for us to thrive in this organization. These are the behaviors, the jobs, the KSAOs, for instance, that are necessary for us to be able to be competitive. Now, when you're looking at that, you want to take a look at the critical success factors. These are variables that have a strong influence on the results of the organization. For an automobile manufacturer, what are critical success factors? Well, you want to be able to produce the automobile at the lowest cost than your competitors. You want to have high customer satisfaction. You want to have fewer defects so that you don't have recalls. Those will be some success factors. High quality, low cost, and that will keep you in business. Key performance indicators are what we call KPIs, a scorecard that measures or tells managers how well the organization is performing relative to critical success factors. Now, just as in performance evaluation, you have a scorecard. You can do that as far as your organization is concerned too. What are those critical areas in your business that you have to be above board in quality? You have to be the leader. And once you have done that, you can create a scorecard to see how well you are shaping up in those different areas. Are you performing at the peak level that's necessary? And that scorecard will help you determine that. Global variable pay is expanding in global firms and in other countries, and you take a look at the same thing, but you take a look at it on a global scale. Now, there are levels of variable pay. You have the individual employee, and it's best to use that type of pay strategy when the output or the results can be directly linked to specific employees. For instance, my son sells cars for Toyota, and this young man is 24 years old, and he is making more money than I would have ever dreamed at that age. But they not only pay him his commission, but if he does more sales in a certain time frame, he gets extra bonuses. I didn't know of all the bonuses and incentives that the automobile sales industry has, but he takes advantages of all of them. And some of the examples of the individual employee would be the piece rate system, and that's where your production work, you're producing so many units of output per hour or day or whatever, bonuses. Non-monetary incentives, which means praise or maybe a plaque, whatever, commissions. And then you have work unit and team pay strategies where you have an interdependence and collaboration going among the people, and that collaboration and interdependence is critical to achieve results. Think about a football team or a basketball team or a team at work. You have to depend on each other to do his or her job to be able to be successful. And some of the examples of the types of rewards or pay: group team results, gain sharing, goal sharing, quality improvement, cost reduction, and you get that idea of synergy where my effort and your effort combined produces more than the individuals that came together to create a solution. And then you have organization-wide variables, which looks at the employees where they have a solid line of sight to enterprise level outcomes, and these types of strategies would involve profit sharing, employee stock plans, executive stock options, and so forth. So these are the different levels of pay and how they are linked specifically to those different levels in the way that we give out that pay. What are the conditions for individual incentive plans? Well, you have to identify the performance that's expected. Individual competitiveness must be desired. That means you're not there just to sit and take in a check or to do the work. There's some competition there. Individualism must be stressed in the organizational culture. And again, like Toyota, they don't work as a team. There is team selling, when one helps another out periodically. But for the most part, you're on your own. You make as much or as little as you want or as you can, but it's your individual effort that will determine how much money you make, and many organizations are like that. Now, the piece rate system, I've talked about that just briefly. You have a straight piece rate system, which wages are determined by multiplying the number of units produced by the piece rate for one unit. So you may be getting, let's say for instance, you are producing 40 units or 50 units an hour. Well, you'd be paid by that number. Now, differential piece rate system pays employees one piece rate wage for units produced up to a standard output, and a higher piece rate wage for units produced over the standard. So let's say, for instance, they're going to pay you $100 an hour for 50 units per hour production. So if you produce the standard, it would be 50 units per hour, and you get $100 for that. Well, let's say, for instance, you put out 75 units per hour. Well, you would make the $100 for that hour, but then you would get a higher piece rate wage for the extra 25 that you produced. And that may be, let's say, $125 for whatever you went over. But piece rate, straight piece rate is just, we're going to pay you this much per unit, per hour, per day, whatever. Differential is where once you've exceeded that standard, you get paid at a higher piece rate over that standard for everything else that you produce. And this is why a lot of people will work themselves to death, because of the opportunity to make a whole lot more money. Now, bonuses. Bonuses, first and foremost, are not an entitlement. A lot of people believe that the company each year owes them a bonus, and that's not correct. A lot of people get upset sometimes when the company is not performing well and they are not able to give out bonuses. The workers get upset and disappointed. And I can understand that, but that's the danger of bonuses. People start to see them as an entitlement, and it's not. A bonus is a one-time payment that does not become part of the employee's base pay. So if you sold or if you produced and had a good year, the owner may give you a bonus over and above what your base pay may be. Spot bonuses can be awarded at any time. My son told me that he sold 5 cars in 1 week, and because of that, the boss gave him a $300 bonus for selling that many cars in a week. It was just an incentive for him to keep on producing like that. And then other bonuses, referral, hiring, retention, all of these things go into it. Now, non-monetary incentives, as we take a look at that, you have performance awards, which are incentive rewards for performance, and it may be a day off. It may be praise, and that would be recognition awards, a plaque or whatever, service awards. We have that here at Mid-America. If you go 5 years, you get a pin, and for every 5 years, I think you get something else. But we want to recognize the amount of service that you have put into the company, and that's what a service award would be. Now, purposes, well, again, it's to incentivize you. It's to motivate you. You want to recognize performance. You want to expand customer service, increase sales, increase quality, morale. And if morale is up, usually the loyalty and retention will be up, and improve safety and attendance, and some of the things that are lacking without some of these incentives you avoid, and that's what you want to do. And again, that's with performance recognition and service award types. If a person is not recognized, or if we don't reward or at least recognize performance, they're going to feel like they're not wanted, that they're not valued. And folks, today we need to be able to provide as much recognition and appreciation for our people as we can. Now, the work unit or team incentives, you have group production, just as you have piece rate for individuals, you can do that as a group. You can save money doing that. You can usually improve customer satisfaction and quality improvement. And one of the popular types of incentives for groups would be gain sharing, and that's sharing with the employees greater than expected gains in profits and or productivity. So let's say, for instance, you as a group in that organization, you were able to collaborate, and through your efforts you were able to save the company a lot of money. And out of that vast amount of money, let's say $50,000, you would get a portion of that because that's money that was not realized at the beginning of the year. The company didn't expect that. So they have like a windfall, and you get to share in that. And companies have been quite successful using that strategy because it encourages people to try to think of ways of being more effective and more efficient. And as a result, everybody wins. Now, here are some of the pros and cons. You're looking at sustained improvements. People are always looking for ways to improve and to lower cost and improve performance. Some of the cons depends on participative management style. It requires open and transparent management communication. Measures must be carefully selected. You know, you have some managers that may not recognize what you're doing. They may not put the group in for gain sharing. They may not be transparent. If the company had a bad year and they're not able, even if they save money, if the economy is like it is and depressed, they may not be able to give that out. So you do have some level of trust in ethical and effective management. And if the management, you can be doing what you're supposed to be doing, but if managers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, if they're incompetent, then you can still lose money, not because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, but because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Profit sharing is if the company is productive and they turn a profit, you can share in that profit as well. And the primary objective is, especially if you're going to invest in the company, you want to be able to attract employees. It'll improve, again, just like gain sharing, their quality, their morale, and so forth. Challenges is disclosure of financial information, variability of profits from year to year. You may be profitable one year and everything is fine, but if the next year you don't perform, you don't get anything probably. There's a steel mill in Nucor Steel in Pennsylvania, and they made headlines because there was no real set salary and wage for the workers. The CEO said, if we're profitable, we'll get paid and we'll share in that profit. But if we're not profitable, then the executives will take the largest cuts, and then we'll start going down the line to the lowest, who will have the lowest cuts. But they don't have bonuses. They don't have benefits. Their pay is based on how well the company does. And consistently, more often than not, they've been able to do quite well in the steel industry. So everybody gets paid well if the company does well. If the company doesn't do well, then there are some executives take a 60% cut in pay. And it goes down again, downhill to the lowest employee. But everybody gains and everybody loses depending on how well the organization does. Some people don't mind that. Some people have a problem with that and would never be able to work like that. But those are some of the ways that profit sharing can provide an incentive for you to go out and outperform your competitors. Now, stock option plans, you're probably aware of them. Some companies will let you invest in the company. That gives you a part of ownership and gives you a piece of, really just belonging. It's more than just getting a paycheck from that company. If you own stock in it, then you are a part of that company now. And then employee stock ownership plans gives employees significant stock ownership in their organizations. And many people have done well just investing in their own company. Now we have sales compensation plans, which deals with salary. All compensation is based as a base wage. When I was in the military, I was a recruiter, and I had to sell the military. I had a quota each month, and I had to put so many people in the Navy Reserve. But I didn't get paid based on commission. I had a salary. It didn't make a difference if someone went in or if they didn't. I was still going to get paid the same. And I believe CarMax does that. I believe that their people are paid a salary so that they don't have to worry about commission. I'm not sure, but that would be a salary only. Commission deals with the percentage of the revenue generated by sales that is given to an agent or salesperson. So whatever you sell, you get a percentage of that. Straight commission. Compensation is computed as a percentage of sales in units or dollars. Now you can have a draw, and that means the amount advanced against or repaid from future commissions earned. My son, they pay him a certain amount of money each month. No matter what, he gets that amount of money right at the very beginning. And then at the end of the month, whatever he's made over that, he keeps, but he puts back or they hold back the amount of money that he drew for that month. So you kind of come out, I guess, even, but you can draw on the amount of each month, and then once you go over that amount, you get what's in excess, but they take back what they gave you originally. Salary plus commission. You not only get a salary, but you get more money based on the sales generated. And of course, bonuses, that's a percentage of base pay tied to how well the employee meets his or her target. Now, executive compensation. There's a lot of controversy now with executive compensation. Many people believe they get paid way too much, but they say that without knowing all of the things that go into executive pay. For instance, most of the money that executives make is not from a multi-million-dollar salary. That's from their stock options. You see, if the CEO is making good decisions and that company is making, let's say, billions, then that CEO will be able to reap the benefits, like stock options, reap the benefits of that performance. So it's kind of misleading at times when people think that, the CEO of Coca-Cola is making, let's say, $4 million a year. Well, part of that is his or her stock options that they have. But they have the responsibility of providing the strategic direction for the organization. They create shareholder value. They ensure the sustainability of the enterprise. And I've always thought it kind of funny. People who would complain about CEOs making millions of dollars because they've made their company successful. Well, what about sports figures and entertainers who make a team, let's say, successful? We have no qualms about how much money they're getting paid. So we had to take a look at it within the total context of what a person is doing as opposed or in relation to their responsibilities and how much money they're generating for that organization. And CEOs are responsible for generating revenue for that organization. This is just a little takeoff on that. Controversy should include an element of risk for the executives. If they're not doing well, should they be able to get paid, especially the salaries? I know one year, it's been several years ago, Michael Eisner, when he was the CEO of Disney, they had one of the worst years ever, and people were being laid off, but yet he cashed in some of his stock options and made over $5 million that year, and people were going out of work. So there is some controversy to that. Compensation can get excessive because it's often based on peer group practices rather than a rational compensation strategy. They look at what the average price for a CEO and their compensation package includes, and that's really the standard, instead of it being based on some type of objective rational compensation strategy. It increases as companies pay above average, and CEOs have input as board members of their company. So they help set the policies that really give them what they are getting now. And here's some of the elements of it as we finish out today. You have base salary that executives get, annual incentives and bonuses, long-term incentives, regular benefits, supplemental benefits, perquisites, and then an exit package. And a lot of people argue, well, you can't just pick up the want ads for CEOs. They are few and far between. But they network just like coaches in the NFL or the NBA maybe. They network. They move within their circles, and so too do CEOs. But I may ask in today's forum how you feel about executive compensation packages. What makes them different from sports figures, or is there a difference? And should everybody be paid by a objective compensation strategy rather than just going by, well, this is what so-and-so's making, so I want to make the same thing. Well, folks, that's all we have for today. These are just a broad stroke overviews of some of the different ways that companies try to be competitive and motivate their employees through compensation and non-monetary incentives. Have a good week, and we'll start back next week. Today we took a look at some of the different pay strategies that companies use to motivate, from bonuses to gain sharing to profit sharing. There are many ways that companies are trying to do more to get more out of the employee. And today we're realizing that we don't necessarily have to have money to do it. Now, money is always a good motivator, but if we can do the same as far as motivation without having to spend extra money, we need to do that. And you as an HR professional are going to have to help plan strategies that will motivate the people without necessarily using raises and salaries and all of that as the primary motivator. Well, that's all we have for this week, and we will come back next week. Until then, God bless you, and we'll see you next week.